This is Glasgow Rangers Nation. I am Owen James, and this is all your latest Rangers news. This is your Rangers news channel, after all. So please smash that sub and help us to keep on growing. We've got some positive news, finally, about the ground. We've got some news about the striker situation. We've got some talking a little bit about Michael Beale has been saying on a podcast. He was on a podcast earlier with, I can't remember the guy's name, Christy Scanlon or something like that, talking about his time in football, including his time at Rangers under Steven Gerrard and as manager. And we've also got some bad news about the B team as well and the performances of Yanis Hadji and Christian Nsiala in said game against Blackburn Rovers, the mighty Blackburn Rovers of all teams. Anyway, let's start off with that podcast. Michael Beale has been talking on a podcast on YouTube to a guy, I think the guy's called Christy Scanlon. And in that podcast, he talked about his time in football. He talked about his time. It's Christy Scanlon. That's the guy if you want to find the podcast. And the podcast is called Michael Beale's first interview post Rangers and Sunderland. Now, in that interview, he talks about his time in football, and it's, you know what, it basically is a great I am, really. And I think there's a lot of crap in what he says. I mean, I don't believe that Cockney used car salesman for them for a minute. Now, he does say that he loves Rangers Football Club. Great, wonderful that he does, even though we don't really love him back. He was entrusted with that huge budget and he absolutely blew it and brought in a load of crap, apart from perhaps Jack Butland and Dujon Sterling. But, you know, I don't think it's all down to Beale. Yes, Michael Beale has a part to play in the position that we are currently in. Of course he does. You know, the signings that he made, etc. But there were some interesting conversations as regards the departure of Zambian striker Fashion Sakala. Look, Fashion had his weaknesses, didn't he? I mean, there's misses against Celtic. You know, the fact that when Fashion thought, he tended to miss, but when he didn't think, he looked pretty good. You know, I like Fashion Sakala. I think, you know, he would have been a good player to have kept around. I think Clement probably would have got the best out of him. Now, Fashion Sakala in the past has spoken about the fact that he felt that he was frozen out by Michael Beale near the end of his time at Rangers. He obviously joined Saudi Pro League side Al Fahaya for 4 million, and they also, you know, that pretty much trebled his wages. Now, he suggested to Rangers Review back in December 2023 that Michael Beale had frozen him out ahead of the season and banished him from the training ground, and stopped him from obviously participating, and even stopped him from saying goodbye to his teammates. Now, look, Fashion's an honest lad. He's a good Christian lad. I've got no doubts, you know, reasons to doubt Fashion. But Michael Beale, speaking on the podcast, said he didn't talk to me about anything or any transfers. This is what Sakala said. Sakala said he clearly showed me that I wasn't part of his plans without telling me. The time I received a call from Beale was when he told me not to come to the training ground anymore. That was hard for me because I didn't do anything. Players leave clubs, but they are not told to go to the training ground, not told to not be part of the team. You can have clubs that come in for you, but still you are training with the team. I stayed without training with the club for almost 2 weeks. Now, Michael Beale has denied this. Speaking to the Mindset podcast, Christy Scanlon, he claimed that he wanted Sakala to stay. Beale claims that the finances on offer to both the Zambian and Rangers were too good to turn down. Beale said, the front 6 players, all the forwards, all left. Out of those who left, the only one that I really didn't want to leave and I had any power over was Fashion Sakala, who'd done really well for me. But he had an offer to triple his wages, and the club had an offer for a player they brought in for free to take for the best part of 4 million to go. So that was frustrating. The other guys all wanted to leave, so it wasn't like you were holding anybody back. Obviously talking about the likes of Ryan Kent, Alfredo Morelos, Scott Arfield, etc., etc. But in terms of the whole Fashion Sakala thing, I just find it, you know, quite unbelievable Michael Beale saying that. I genuinely think this is again an attempt by Michael Beale to kind of, I don't know, clear his name and kind of make someone else look bad and, you know, transfer the blame to Fashion. But I like I said, I'm more likely to believe Fashion Sakala. But you know, it's a very interesting interview that Beale gives to Christy Scanlon. If you want to watch it, you know, he talks about the fact that, you know, when we won 55, he feels we should have won one of the cup competitions, which I have to say that I agree with him on. He talked about the fact that Rangers paid 1.5 million for Todd Cantwell. And also 1.5 million for Nicholas Raskin, even though they could have had him for free in the summer. They wanted to hurry the deal up and bring him in. He said, in the winter, we brought in Nicholas Raskin, a young Belgian under 21 international. We paid early to get him. It was free, but we paid around 800,000 to get him. So apparently it wasn't 1.5 million, it was 800,000. Sorry. We brought in Todd Cantwell as well. Now, look, I think, there is a need to kind of try and obviously, I think, move on Cantwell this summer. And I think clubs have kind of sussed us out as regards Cantwell. They know that he's been isolated to the B team. They know that he's not part of the plans. They know that we don't want him at the club. So, in terms of Cantwell, I do think there will be a kind of a waiting time. The clubs that want him, I think, will wait until the 30th of August, try and paint us into a corner and get him for as cheap a price as possible. We've kind of put ourselves in that position as well with what we've said and how we've banished him to the B team. I personally think it makes genuinely no sense what we've done with Hadji and Cantwell. The fact that, yes, they do want to move, but, we're still paying them. We're still paying them a substantial amount of money. We should be playing them. But, a podcast that, was very interesting, gave a lot of roundabouts, gave a lot of, give a lot about, the club. He also had a little sly dig at the board saying that had he known what he was signing up for in November and what the board said and what the board actually promised and what the board actually did deliver, he wouldn't have signed on, apparently. Now, again, that's another manager having a dig at the board. Now, like I said, I don't really believe a lot of what comes out of Michael Beale's mouth. I believe, the circumstances in which he was appointed in were very poor indeed. The way he was at the game at the ground when Gio was under pressure, I think was bang out of order. But, it's interesting, isn't it, that even a manager who was, substantially backed in a transfer window is still criticising the board and criticising what the board did at the club. I think we all know that this board are an absolute disaster of an organisation. But there you go. Let me know what you think of that story. Let me know what you think of who you believe, and let me know what you think. And if you haven't given it a watch, just give it a watch. It's interesting, shall we say. Now, if you remember on the podcast on Sunday, on the final word, I spoke about the attack on that female St Johnstone supporter and how that drum was taken from her, how she was assaulted by those Rangers fans, which I think is an absolute damn disgrace. And I utterly condemned those Rangers fans on that podcast, or so-called Rangers fans on the podcast on Sunday. Anyway, Rangers have revealed today that 4 fans have been banned indefinitely after a woman was assaulted and robbed outside Hampden before the club's game against St Johnstone on Sunday. This is reported by the BBC. A 51-year-old woman, an employee of the Perth club, had a drum taken from her during the incident. A spokesman from Rangers said the following: Rangers can confirm it is issued indefinite bans to 4 individuals as inquiries continue following the incident outside Hampden Park on Sunday. Rangers has reached out to the St Johnstone employee to check on their well-being and to apologise on behalf of the club. We abhor and condemn all incidents like this in the strongest possible terms and continue to support Police Scotland in their ongoing investigations. Apparently, a lad called Aaron Watt, 22, was ordered to keep 500 metres away from any stadium where Rangers are playing as part of his bail conditions. Watt of Irvine, North Ayrshire, is alleged to have stolen the drum. So there we go. That is the name of the guy who stole it. 2 other men aged 16 and 21 were also arrested as well as part of this. Now, Rangers obviously have acted swiftly. They've come out and they've condemned this. They've banned those 4 individuals indefinitely. So basically means lifetime bans, which I fully support. So, look, we've criticised the club on a number of occasions for what they've done. We've called them out on things, but, I fully support what the club have done here. I fully congratulate the club on this, on the statement. I also fully support what the club have done here, and banning these individuals, these absolute scumbags, is the right thing to do. They dishonour our club. They dishonour the name of Rangers. They're not true Rangers fans, not if they're going to do this and behave in this certain way. I don't care if they're Union Bears or if they're loyal Rangers fans or whatever. If they've grown up as Rangers fans, if you act in this way, if you assault a female supporter from another club, you are the lowest form of life on earth, and you deserve to be banned for life from every single ground. So, like I said, I fully support what Rangers have done. I fully support this ban. I think it's absolutely spot on for me. Right, positive news on the stadium. Apparently, in terms of the stadium, the final shipment of steel has arrived. Yay! And the ground is on track to be completed, and Rangers are on track to return to the to Ibrox by the end of next month. I think we'll all welcome this news. We all are very positive about this news. I think this is really, really positive. This is what we need. We need to get back to Ibrox. We need to be back in our home ground, our real, genuine home ground. As I said the other day on the video, I think, if we'd played Dynamo Kiev at Ibrox and we'd had Ibrox roaring us on, I think that we could have actually won that game. Ibrox is a 12th man, isn't it? And we like Hampden for a semi, we like Hampden for a final, but we don't like playing our league games there. I think there's a lot of apathy towards the board as well, which obviously has contributed to the low crowds. But being away from Ibrox certainly hasn't helped. And the whole stadium debacle, again, has not helped. So good news that obviously the stadium is progressing. Good news that we'll be back on time, and that the timeline that was laid out by John Caveat Bennett obviously was clear and is actually going to be fulfilled. So that's good news. That's positive news. Obviously, it's still an absolute debacle that we're not actually in the ground now, and we should be playing our home games there. But it is good news that we will return on time to the ground. That is very positive news. Some not so great news today, well, from yesterday actually, that the B team went down to Lancashire to take on Blackburn Rovers, a Blackburn Rovers B team, and were hammered 6-2. The team that Rangers put out was Halliwell, Devine, Hutton and Ciala, Webster, Allen, Curtis, Robertson, Eadie, Hadji and Lowry. On the bench were Maguire, Allen, Grant, McClure, Nuncio, Burnside and Gentles. No Bailey Rice, no Zach Lovelace in that squad, no Archie Stevens, which, is a bit of a surprise. And, maybe that's a nod to the game on Saturday. Maybe, hopefully, we'll see those players involved on Saturday. Now, apparently in the game, I haven't seen the game. I'm only going off what I've read and what reports I've seen. Clinton and Ciala was not great at all. Was to blame for a couple of the goals. And that even Yanis Hadji had a very poor performance, as did Alex Lowry. The two goals that Rangers scored were scored by Chris Eadie and by Finlay Curtis. Surely Finlay Curtis is someone, that, has been involved pre-season, wasn't he? But, surely should be involved, I think, perhaps long-term, given opportunity from the bench to come on and impress. Again, another player that is coming through the youth system. And I do want to talk about the youth players, and I will talk about the youth players on the podcast tonight. But look, I genuinely think that the youth, if it is that we can't obviously sign anybody else, if it is that, we can't get anybody out the door and we can't bring any more players in, surely these youth players need to be given opportunity. Yes, that's a bad performance today, but, the players that weren't involved today, the Cole McKinnons, the Robbie Frasers, the Bailey Rices, Zach Lovelaces, Archie Stevens, Paul Nuncio, who only came on late in the second half and actually did impress when he came on. Surely they must be in the reckoning to be actually given first team minutes, because how will we ever know if they're good enough if we don't actually see them play? But not a great result. And like I said, not a good performance. And, maybe this puts into perspective why Hadji's in the B team. But look, at this moment in time, if you want to persist with a 10, and I've talked ad infinitum about why we shouldn't persist with a 10, because we haven't got one. If we're not going to play Hadji and Cantwell, yada, 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 we shouldn't be using a 10. But if we do want to use a 10, why are we at least not giving Yanis Hadji an opportunity? I don't get it. Genuinely don't get it. But a very poor result for the B team today. As regards the Rangers strikers, obviously we have three strikers at the club at this moment in time: Danilo, Dessers and Igman. Now, realistically, as has been said by a number of Rangers podcasts, a number of media types, a number of people in the know, it's highly unlikely that Rangers will add to their strikers in this transfer window if one of them doesn't leave. Given the fact that Clement seems determined to stay with one up top, it's highly unlikely in that, that he's going to bring in another striker. Chris Jack, speaking on Rangers Review, even went as far as to say that unless Cyril Dessers leaves, would it been highly unlikely it'd be Danilo, given his injury and the fact we've just signed Hamza Igman. Dessers has been the most likely candidate, given he's had interest from Cagliari and Aris Thessaloniki. if he doesn't leave, then there's no chance of Rangers actually signing a striker. Look, Dessers has done well at the start of the campaign, don't get me wrong. 3 goals in 5 games. He's taken his chances, but he has still missed chances. He's still missed opportunities. I still, to this day, do not trust Cyril Dessers. Come the critical games, come when it actually matters, at Parkhead, against Celtic, in Europe. Can we really rely on him to take his chances, to put us in a position to win games? I don't know. He to me, he is too unreliable. Danilo still is several weeks away from being match fit. Hamza Igman is kind of the wild card, isn't he? He comes from a footballing nation that have really developed in the last few years. Finished 3rd at the last World Cup, finished 3rd in the Olympic Games. In terms of the Olympic Games, Igman would have been part of that squad had he been fit. But obviously, with him being injured, wasn't part of the squad. So Hamza Igman, he could be a star. He could be a quality player. He could be someone who could burst onto the scene and really make a difference. We don't know until we get to see him. Obviously, Clement has said that it's slow steps with him. He's getting there. We will start to see him towards the end of September, October. But look, I think we've got to kind of accept that the strikers we've got are the strikers we're going to have to try and go through this season with. Are they realistically good enough to win us the league title? Probably not. Are they good enough to at least get us into a competition situation? Probably. But it is worrying times. It is very worrying times. But, we've got to hope. And I think, Hamza Igman is a big hope that this player is as promising and as good as obviously Niels Koppen thinks he is. And the fact that, like I said, he comes from a footballing nation that is very much developing. And in terms of their national team, he is part of their plans. And their national team is a good national team and has produced some very good players. Sabari, Ziyech, just off the top of my head as examples. But, perhaps the striker situation isn't as bad as we're making it out to be. Like I said, Cyril Dessers, yes, extremely unreliable, probably not the answer. But, Danilo fully fit, could well get us there. Igman could burst onto the scene, score goals. Let's try and look for some positivity in these strikers. Guys, let me know what you think anyway. Right, thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, on the way out, if you can do me 2 favours. Number 1, smash that like. And number 2, remember always, we are the people.